Okay, good morning and welcome to the Hub One Modern Practice webcast series. My name's Nick Bojad, and today what I'm going to be doing is taking you through a short 30-minute introduction to the modern practice. The Hub One webcast series consists of a number of different short presentations and one half-day seminar, which is really designed to help you get your team up to speed with not just the Hub One components of the modern practice, but also to understand what the latest thinking is around accounting practices and bookkeepers running their entire business in the cloud. So you're watching the first in the webcast series, which is the introduction. We then have several others which are delivered every Wednesday between now and Christmas. We're going to be talking about migration. How do we actually move, and not just move email and other things, but move your data and potentially move other systems to the cloud. We're going to talk about finding data, and one of the most important things in a practice in the cloud is how do you actually find and locate information that you need to do your work. There's a number of different ways of doing that, so we'll be talking through that in that session. And then modern practice day to day is really a culmination of what all of our different customers have done to actually work day to day as an accountant or bookkeeper. Don't be worried, as an IT pro, I'm not going to take you through how to be an accountant or a bookkeeper because I wouldn't have a clue. But I am going to take you through how to use some of the systems we're putting together as a part of this. So let's introduce the modern practice. So if I click on my slide, that should bring this up. So the Hub One modern practice is a combination of components which enables an accounting practice or bookkeeping organization to operate solely in the cloud. The design of this is to enable you not to just put some things in the cloud, but to put all of your systems in the cloud. And the reason for that is it's our belief, and this is actually borne out, that you get the maximum benefit when all of your systems are running in the cloud. Now, ideally, we'd want every one of the production systems to be running as software as a service. And our definition of software as a service is that the vendor, i.e. Microsoft or Xero or even MYOB, BGL, etc., host and operate their application which you consume. That's an ideal world. Now, obviously, not every application is available as a software as a service model. So we here at Hub One also offer an infrastructure as a service model, which means we can take your server and host it in the cloud. And as of last week, we've been able to do that in Sydney, which is really quite exciting. Right, so the modern practice was first postulated by Xero in 2011. And if you were listening to some of the things Xero was saying back then, you'd be really familiar with the term. In January 2012, in fact, to give you the story, Christmas Eve, Chris Reid, who's the managing director of Xero Australia, gave me a call and started burbling some things about a modern practice. And I said, Chris, I don't understand. What do you mean by a modern practice? And so we set out to build an architecture. And what I want to do in this session is I want to talk you through the components of a modern practice, talk you through how we think about it, which kind of frames the rest of the discussions, which we think is quite important. So the whole of this session is about that architecture. All of the other sessions include demonstrations and include welcome Amy from Hanson's, how are you? Include demonstrations and include actually hands-on playing with the tools. But today the first introduction session is purely slideware, so my apologies because I hate delivering lots of slides. So we'll kind of get through it fairly quickly. So what is the architecture? You know, a lot of people have said to me, Nick, you talk about the modern practice architecture. What is it? My background is as an IT software architect, and I've worked for some organizations you might have heard of, like Microsoft and Republic National Bank of New York and Credit Suisse and others. And when we build an architecture, we build two things. We build what we call a reference architecture, which really is a diagram with a bunch of squares in it, which we fill in with various components or outcomes we want to achieve. Then we have what we call a prescriptive architecture, and commonly we have more than one. And the prescriptive architecture details what pieces of software or solutions go in to fill in those boxes. So let's talk about that today. Right, so without much further ado, these are the components that make up the reference architecture of the modern practice portal. So, alright, good morning Grant, how are you? So the modern practice portal the modern practice architecture is built up of all these various pieces, and I'm going to talk you through them. At the bottom are the pieces which we believe every organization should have. They're the core pieces. Moving up slowly, we get into the pieces which are specific to a business. For example, practice management and general ledger. Now, although they're specific to a business, many businesses would need those things, so they're not core to being an accountant or a bookkeeper. But as you move to the top, there are things which we call line of business applications, which are, for your line of business. So, for example, you may or may not offer HR services. You may or may not offer corporate secretarial, but we need to fill out those components. So we believe these few boxes here, these 11 boxes, actually create a just Ryan popped me a message. Let me just grab that. Right, so Ryan's not attending. So for everybody who's attended late, there's no worries at all. There is actually a video recording we're doing of this session, which you'll be able to get. I'll just edit out that a little bit. So let me take you through the architecture and talk about the various components. So the first thing we do is we break it down into what we call core components. Core components are something every business needs. So we believe you need internet and phone. We believe you need printing and fax. We believe you need email and identity. And identity is all about being able to log in and identify who you are. We believe you need document management, and believe you need to be able to collaborate. In the modern workplace, it's not just okay just to have phones. A lot of people coming into the workplace now are expecting corporate instant messaging. So it's one of those things which actually adds a heap of value if you can make it work. So those are the things that we think not just your practice, but every one of your customers will need. And every business, in fact, in Australia, we think needs one or some of these. So even if I look at my business, we have internet and phone, we have fax and printing, we have email and identity management, collaboration and document management as the core of our business. But when we move on to the next bit, what we also find is we need a general ledger, so we need an accounting solution. We need to be able to invoice people and receive payments. And we need something, as a solution that runs our business and looks after our clients and looks after our billing, our practice management solution. So we think if you're an accountant, you need all of the core things, and you're definitely going to need a ledger, and you're definitely going to need practice management. We think every accountant and bookkeeper in Australia, and in fact the world, will need something to solve that. Then as we move up, there's what we call the specific line of business application. So what do we do if we want to automate preparation of tax returns? What do we do if we want to automate management of self-managed super funds, management of corporate secretarial, of lodgements to ASIC, and what do we want to do if we want to offer additional HR services to our business clients? So it's important for us as a organization, first of all, to say, is this the consolidated and complete list of things we need to do to run a practice? And it's our belief, in talking to now about 120 practices with this model, that this is the complete list. Nobody can really think of anything else. Some useful homework for you guys, if you want to have a look at the recording. If you can think of something that's not in this list that we've missed, please let us know, because architectures are things which are constantly evolving and changing. So when we go from that, we then say, okay, well, that's cool, that's theoretical, that's nice, but I run a business and I really like customers to buy some stuff. So what we need to do is we need to turn that into a prescriptive architecture. And a prescriptive architecture must adhere to the reference architecture, so it must fit in the boxes. But secondly, it must be something that we can implement, and it's something that we've tested as implementable, if that makes sense. So what we did in the early days of this is we built our reference architecture. It's a nice big document, and any of you are welcome to it. And once we built that reference architecture, we then started to build out a prescriptive architecture with a bunch of sample accounting firms who have been very patient and helped us actually build out a tested reference architecture, which is prescriptive architecture, which is where we now are. So if I go in, I can now take you through the various components of our prescriptive architecture. And I'll lose the terminology for a bit. Let's start at the bottom. Internet and phone. Most accounting firms and slightly larger bookkeepers will have a horrible thing called a PABX or a PBX, which basically acts as an internal telephone exchange. We think that's nice, but remember the first adage, which you're going to get maximum benefit if everything's in the cloud. So what we recommend there is using a solution from a company called MyNet Phone. MyNet Phone provides what we call VoIP, voice over IP, at a really attractive rate. Provides all the functions of a PBX system, but is totally hosted in the cloud. They can also provide internet services, but I'd just be careful. In the days now of things like the NBN, National Broadband Network, and other things, the internet service varies in Australia from town to town, from region to region, and from state to state. So what we recommend is to work with us to make sure you have the best internet connection for the money you're willing to spend in your specific location. And we think that's really quite important. Alison, I'm going to say welcome to the presentation. You have missed most of it because we started at 9. However, we will be recording the presentation, so you will be able to grab that. Right, so we've talked about internet and phone. Fax and printing. Well, most modern printers are really good in that we don't need a server to manage them. So things like the Canons and the Xeroxes and the HPs and all sorts of things work really, really well as network printers. You plug them into your network in your office and they'll just function. In fact, some of them are even wireless. So we don't really need to think about printing very much anymore. One of the things we do need to think about is fax. It's my belief that lawyers and accountants are almost becoming one of the few organizations where fax is requested or required. And so what we're going to do with that is we recommend, again, using MyNet Phone to do fax in the cloud, which we can push straight through to your Exchange inbox. So faxes appear in your inbox in email, which is very nice. From a printing point of view, your printers sit on the network and everybody can use them quite happily. So let's move on. Email and identity management. Office 365 provides Exchange Online, which is a fantastic email solution. And what we've done is we've chosen the best plan for accountants and bookkeepers. The E3 plan, which we choose, not only provides 5 copies of Microsoft Office for each user, but also provides everyone with a 25 gig email box, unlimited archive, and something called legal hold. That allows us to ensure that even if somebody leaves the organization, as long as their Office 365 subscription is still there, we can get to and search any email they've ever sent and received, even if they deleted it, which is really useful in audits and investigations and other things. From an identity point of view, we're recommending a product called Okta. And what Okta does is it acts really as your, if you will, your Active Directory in the cloud. And Okta really allows us to have a single login in your organization, and that control logins to Xero, to Workflow Max, and to all the other systems that you use, which we think is quite fantastic. For document management, we recommend, obviously, a piece of our software called the Modern Practice Portal. And what the Modern Practice Portal is a specific SharePoint implementation, again on SharePoint Online in the cloud run by Microsoft, but it pulls in the data from Workflow Max. So when you're using Workflow Max as your practice management tool, it's very, very easy to see your list of clients, your list of jobs, your list of tasks, and use that to augment your data. As well as that, as an optional feature, we have something called the Scan Document Manager. The Scan Document Manager allows you to scan paper information using a certain type of format, which is called the searchable PDF. This piece of software will then look at that and automatically file it into the right place in your document management system. Not only that, it contains additional components that allow you to upload simply existing data from your current server or your current platform straight into your new Modern Practice Portal. So we're pretty excited about that piece of software. It's currently sitting in its final test phase, and we're expecting it to be released really in the next few days. So next week, when we do our webcast about migration, you'll be able to see that all working, which will be absolutely awesome. From a collaboration point of view, you're experiencing right now that you're using Link Online through Office 365 to watch this presentation. We haven't done anything special. This is very normal Link, but this allows you to connect in, to listen to the presentation, to see things on your computer, and we'll be sending out recordings. And there's a bunch of other things we can do about it. We can connect to each other, we can connect organizations together, and all of that appears working in the Office applications. From a practice management point of view, in this prescriptive architecture, we have Workflow Max. Workflow Max is not just Xero's practice management solution, but it's also a product we use here at Hub One. We're such fans, we decided to write software around it, and the software we write around it allows you to use Workflow Max as your practice management tool and have all that data exposed in SharePoint for use later, which is kind of nice. From a ledger point of view and accounting software, Xero, obviously it was Xero that first approached us about this, so it's all about Xero. Xero is really the core of that, and then Xero will then integrate with Workflow Max, which integrates with SharePoint Online and the Modern Practice portal. One of the nice things, though, with Okta for identity management is you don't have to have separate logins for Workflow Max and for Xero and for Office 365. We can consolidate that into a single login should you wish. Then moving up from a tax point of view, now we're in an ever-moving world of software as a service at the moment, and certainly Xero have announced that Workflow Max will be delivering tax functions to accountants in Australia. So what we've done at the moment is we said, well, that's not a worry at all. We can take your existing system, be it HandyTax, BGL on your server, or MYOB AO or AE, and we can take that and host that in Sydney on Amazon Web Services, on what we call infrastructure as a service. So we can still take the server out of your business and have that hosted somewhere with incredibly high availability and at a very, very cost-effective price. From there, from a super fund management and corporate secretarial, we're recommending BGL. We're actually, while I'm recommending BGL in the architecture, we're now working on our first couple of implementations of that, and when we come out of that, we'll have more details in that core. And then for HR, there's a number of solutions out there, but we have a partnership with the guys from HR Logic, which seems to integrate quite nicely with the Modern Practice portal, so that all comes together. So there's the architecture, but we need to get to it. And the way we get to it is we provide additional services to wrap around that. The services we deliver are about implementation, turning all these things on. Migration, moving from where you are to this new place. Support, and there's some interesting things happening in support. One of the things we notice is when organizations move to the cloud, they need a far lower level of IT support than they used to. So we offer an unlimited support program via email and web, where you can actually raise as many support cases as you like within reason, and we'll answer and work through all of those at a price of $10 a user a month. Compared to what organizations are spending on support today, we believe that to be incredibly attractive, and we think it's the cheapest in the business. And the way we make money on that is twofold. So first of all, you have to license your whole organization, which kind of makes sense. And secondly, we believe in the long term that will actually work in our favor, and certainly that's starting to be the case. We also resell. So if you want something like Okta, we can resell that to you. We also provide something called Intune, which does desktop operating systems and antivirus. And we also resell a certain limited amount of hardware. So we can do that as well. And we also provide advice. So if you have questions or concerns or things you need to talk about, you're more than welcome to reach out to us or the team, and we'll do what we can to help you. And we're not an incredibly large team, so we sometimes get busy, but we do respond to every question. So anything you have at all, feel free to leap and have a discussion with us. So that really gives the grounding. It's something you can do now. There's no reason for anybody to be sitting with a server in their organization. We can move the whole lot to the cloud today. Right. Another important thing is you don't have to do it in one piece. In fact, we would recommend you wouldn't. So we recommend you do this migration in pieces. Change in a business needs to be managed. And so we need to move forward step by step, changing individual pieces one at a time. Some of these have no impact. Some of these, obviously, changing your practice management solution may have large impact. So it's making sure that we manage that organizational change and do it in steps. And if you have any questions about it, email sales@hub1.com. The next sessions coming up during the day, if you haven't seen them already, will be going into demo and going into individual pieces of the modern practice and actually playing with some of the technology and showing you how it all works. We finished about 3 minutes early, so I'd like to thank you for attending today. Now, you can feel free to either turn on your microphone, go off mute, or type a question in the question box, and we'll be more than happy to answer those. If not, I'm going to stop the recording, we will make that available to you later on over the next couple of days. So anyone who's registered for this session will get a link to the recording. But primarily, thank you for attending today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and any feedback is of course welcome.